I want you to imagine, just for a moment, the sheer chaotic buzz of microscopic atoms.
Oh, wow. Starting big today.
Right, well, starting small, actually.
I
Trillions of them just vibrating at these totally incomprehensible speeds, making up the fabric of literally everything around you.
everything.
Yeah. And now, just take a breath. And I want you to zoom all the way out. Imagine the silent, just endless, freezing expanse of galaxies swirling in the absolute dark of deep space.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. The scale of the universe is just staggering. But the interesting part here is that you don't actually live in either of those extremes.
No, you don't.
You don't live in the quantum buzz, and you don't live in the galactic void. You live right in the middle. You are standing in this highly specific, perfectly calibrated middle ground.
Which is such a great way to frame it.
And Dr. Philip Green calls it the mesoscale. And that is exactly where our journey begins today.
It really is the ideal starting point. Because today we are taking a deep dive into a very unique collection of source material. We're, um, we're looking at a comprehensive one-year synopsis of the teachings of Dr. Philip Green.
Which were originally broadcast over on the Eclectic Scout channel.
Right, exactly. And this text serves as a massive milestone. It documents one full year of twice-weekly transmissions. The syllabus actually refers to this rigorous schedule as cyclical consistency.
Cyclical consistency. I like that.
Yeah, it's a way of keeping these philosophical ideas present in daily life rather than just, hearing it once and forgetting it.
And the setting for these teachings, it isn't some sterile, fluorescent-lit lecture hall either. The source paints this incredibly vivid picture of a living, breathing classroom that is constantly shifting its location.
The atmosphere is a huge part of the text.
It totally is. One day, the teachings are anchored in the hushed, towering redwoods of the Cathedral of Giants up at UC Santa Cruz, where the fog is literally rolling through the canopy.
Sounds amazing.
And then the next day, the discussion moves down to these vibrant, espresso-scented tables in downtown Santa Cruz. You can almost feel the shift in energy just reading about it.
Going from the quiet isolation of the pines to the kinetic energy of a coffee shop.
Exactly.
And that environmental shift is very deliberate in the text. Our mission for this deep dive is to synthesize this whole atmospheric year-long journey and really extract the core philosophy.
Which is a tall order.
It is, but we are going to examine what Dr. Green argues it actually means to be a conscious human being living in what he describes as a custom-made paradise.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with this foundational idea of the mesoscale and what the text calls the sacred vessel.
The sacred vessel, right?
Because the teachings put forward this idea that our bodies are not just, random biological accidents shuffling around on a rock. Dr. Green describes the human form as a high-fidelity instrument.
An instrument designed for a very specific purpose.
Yes, explicitly designed to perceive and experience the great mystery of existence. In this framework, you are quite literally built to witness the wonder of this middle ground.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this perspective attempts to radically reframe how we view human existence. Dr. Green introduces a concept he terms the profound Trinity.
The body, mind, and spirit.
Exactly. But it's the assertion that the body, the mind, and the spirit are not three distinct, warring factions competing for dominance.
Which is how a lot of us feel sometimes.
Totally. But instead, they act as a single, inseparable unit. According to the text, you cannot isolate the physical experience from the spiritual one.
Because the physical instrument is the exact mechanism that allows the spirit to interact with the mesoscale.
Right. Which brings us to where this instrument actually operates, the custom-made paradise.
Now, at first glance, that phrase might sound a bit, overly optimistic.
It does sound very utopian.
It does. But the teachings use it to argue that the Earth should not be viewed as this giant warehouse of resources just waiting to be extracted until the shelves are totally empty.
The alternative offered is to view the planet as a system of unconditional provision.
Unconditional provision?
Yeah, the idea is that the environment perfectly mirrors our biological needs. The exact mixture of oxygen we need to breathe, the fresh water we require, the nutrients the soil produces.
It's presented as a closed loop of biological provision.
Exactly. But it is worth noting that this custom-made paradise concept isn't suggesting the world is without danger. A hurricane or a harsh winter is still part of the system.
Right, it's not saying bad weather doesn't exist.
No. What Dr. Green focuses on is the fundamental biological compatibility. It directly challenges the purely extractive mindset of modern industry.
And I want to ask, what stands out to you, the listener, when you shift that perspective? If you stop looking at a forest simply as potential timber or a mountain as just a dormant mine, and instead view them as external extensions of your own respiratory or skeletal systems.
It's a massive shift. The text argues that seeing the planet as a mirror of your biological needs demands a relationship of reciprocity, rather than a relationship of domination.
And that concept of domination actually provides a really great segue into the next major historical reframe in the syllabus.
It tackles the architecture of supremacy.
Yes. It asks a very basic yet incredibly complex question. Why did humans become the top dog of this planet?
It's a question we've all asked at some point.
Right. And if you look at standard evolutionary narratives, or honestly just watch enough nature documentaries, it is really easy to assume we climbed to the top because we developed the sharpest weapons.
Or because we were the most cunning, brutal predators out there.
Exactly. But Dr. Green's philosophy posits a completely different mechanism. The argument here is that humans became the apex species not through violence, but through connection.
It's a really interesting counter-narrative to the colloquial understanding of survival of the fittest.
Which is almost always misinterpreted as survival of the most ruthless.
Exactly. And the text outlines 3 specific pillars that form this architecture of connection. It starts with physical and cognitive traits before moving into the social realm.
Let's look at the physical and cognitive first. Thumbs and talk.
Sounds almost too simple.
It does, but think about it. Having opposable thumbs gave us the ability to create tools, sure, but Dr. Green frames it in a much more conceptual way. He suggests that thumbs gave humanity the ability to manifest thought into matter.
Which is profound when you really think about it.
It is. Think about the gap between imagining a physical object, like a clay cup or a woven shelter, and actually bringing it into the physical world. Thumbs bridge that gap.
And then you pair that with the cognitive pillar, talk.
Right. Language allows us to share abstract truths across space and time. It builds what the text calls cumulative culture.
Because of language, we don't have to start from scratch every single generation.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just teach the next generation how to build upon it.
What's fascinating here is the third pillar, which the text actually focuses heavily on. It's the social pillar, referred to as gestures and faces.
Or the spirit's bridge.
The spirit's bridge, yes. The argument is that our faces are arguably the most powerful tools for connection we possess.
Consider universal human facial expressions.
Genuine fear, sudden joy, deep surprise.
These are recognized by any human being anywhere on the globe, regardless of what language they speak.
From an evolutionary standpoint, this allows for rapid, silent cooperation in critical moments. But Dr. Green takes it a step further into philosophy here.
How so?
Well, the teaching suggests that this shared emotional vocabulary effectively dismantles the ego's illusion of separateness. When you see genuine grief or joy on a stranger's face, your brain instantly recognizes them as a reflection of yourself.
I want to push back on that just slightly, or rather ask how the text handles the reality of human behavior, because dismantling the illusion of separateness sounds wonderful. It really does. But human history is incredibly violent. If we are truly built for connection, why is there so much conflict? How does the syllabus reconcile that?
That is a crucial tension in the material. Dr. Green doesn't deny human violence. Rather, he frames it as a tragic departure from our baseline architecture.
A departure.
Yes, the text suggests that violence arises when that spirit's bridge is actively suppressed or manipulated. When we lose sight of our internal workings, our external actions become destructive.
Which leads directly into how the syllabus addresses internal conflict.
Right, the transition from external history to internal geography, or what the text calls psychography.
Psychography. This might be one of the most practical concepts in the entire year-long syllabus. Dr. Green proposes that every single one of us is a United States of being.
You're not just one single monolithic personality walking around.
No, your mind is made up of many different internal territories and factions.
And because you have these different factions, this internal republic requires governance. Dr. Green calls this the constitution of the self.
Just like a functioning democracy, your psyche needs vital checks and balances.
The text uses the metaphor of internal states. It warns that we must establish these balances so that the state of anxiety doesn't become a tyrant over the state of peace.
I love that visual. Just imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. Your internal state of anxiety immediately wants to declare war, right?
Absolutely.
It wants to honk the horn, yell, and basically ruin your whole morning.
Yeah.
But if you have a constitution of the self, your state of peace or your state of logic can veto that declaration of war.
Exactly. The goal of this internal constitution is to achieve e pluribus unum, out of many, one.
Right.
The teachings specifically outline the necessity of integrating different parts of the psyche to form this union. They discuss the inner child, the adult, the elder, and the shadow.
The shadow is always the tricky part.
It is. But the argument is that if you can bring all those internal citizens to the table, acknowledging the playful child, the responsible adult, the wise elder, and even the hidden darker impulses of the shadow, you create a more perfect union within your own mind.
You don't exile the shadow.
No, you give it a seat at the table so it doesn't operate in the dark.
Here's where it gets really interesting. In discussing this internal republic, the text completely redefines the concept of liberty.
Yes, it turns it on its head.
In modern culture, we usually think of liberty as the freedom to just do whatever we want, whenever we want to do it, total lack of constraint.
Just absolute freedom of impulse.
Right. But Dr. Green teaches that true liberty is actually the freedom from being enslaved by your own reactivity.
It is the freedom to pause, consult that internal constitution, and consciously choose a response, rather than just being a hostage to your own reflexes.
This raises an important question, though, about the relationship between the internal and the external.
The syllabus argues that this internal governance naturally echoes outward. The premise is that you cannot heal the external world if your internal republic is in a state of civil war.
The source material refers to this outward expansion as restoration. It explicitly ties individual psychological healing to planetary ecological restoration.
And this is where the imagery of the living classroom moves away from the coffee shops and into the gardens and the groves.
Enter Sid, the steward of the soil.
Yes.
The text introduces several key figures, and Sid is presented as the champion of permaculture. The teachings offer a great translation of permaculture here, defining it literally as permanent culture.
Sid's role in the syllabus is to teach the other half of culture.
Right, because the first half is art, philosophy, and language.
And the other half is how we sustain our physical presence here, which means designing human systems that actively mimic the circularity of nature.
It requires a systemic shift away from the linear take, make, dispose model.
Because that linear model treats the planet as an endless warehouse on one end and a bottomless garbage dump on the other.
Permaculture, or regeneration, is presented as the necessary alternative. In a natural forest, there is literally no concept of trash.
The waste of one biological system is the essential fuel for the next. The fallen leaves feed the soil, which feeds the sapling.
This circularity is the practical application of the unconditional provision we discussed earlier. But the teachings do not shy away from the consequences of what happens if humanity refuses to adopt this circularity.
No, they don't. The tone of the syllabus gets quite sobering in this section. The source material brings in ancient frameworks to contextualize our current global situation, specifically referencing the Hopi prophecy.
They discuss the concepts of the gourd full of ashes and the day of purification.
To look at this analytically, we have to examine how Dr. Green connects a Native American prophecy to modern geopolitical and environmental realities.
The imagery of the gourd full of ashes is often interpreted as a devastating event, a gourd falling from the sky and creating a boiling cloud of destruction.
Right. The teachings use this imagery not necessarily as a literal prediction of doom, but as a stark philosophical warning about the destructive potential of humanity when we operate entirely outside of connection and regeneration.
The text draws a very direct line here. It argues that the degree of global violence we witness is intimately tied to our current degree of global inequity, and specifically our extractive mistreatment of nature.
Yes, the syllabus frames ecological exploitation and human conflict as symptoms of the exact same spiritual illness.
The refusal to see the mesoscale as a sacred vessel leads directly to the gourd full of ashes.
It is a harsh assessment of modern civilization's trajectory.
It's heavy material, but the syllabus frames it as necessary friction for the journey. And speaking of friction, in the final quarters of this year-long syllabus, the conversation shifts into some truly mystical territory.
They focus heavily on this idea of the friction of existence, which they call the coyote's spiral.
I really appreciate the analogies they use to explain this. They talk about the tether of opposites.
The underlying idea is that you literally cannot have the height without the depth.
You cannot have the pearl without the irritating piece of grit inside the oyster.
It's a profound acceptance of life's dualities. Instead of viewing struggles, anxieties, and friction as mistakes or glitches in the custom-made paradise, the coyote's spiral frames them as the required mechanisms for growth.
The muscle doesn't grow without resistance.
Exactly. And this acceptance of friction leads to the culminating concept of the syllabus, which the text calls the grand synthesis.
This synthesis is provided by two figures in the teachings named Luna and Scout.
It is called Entertaining the One.
Entertaining the One. I have to admit, when I first read that, it sounded almost egocentric, like I am the star of the show.
I can see how it sounds that way.
But the way they explain it is actually the exact opposite. It is a beautiful, almost playful, spiritual framework. It suggests that our primary job, above all else, is simply to provide a joyful, engaging experience for the consciousness that is watching through our eyes.
It completely shifts the pressure off the individual ego. Your job, according to this synthesis, isn't necessarily to conquer the world, amass wealth, or solve all of humanity's problems.
Your fundamental job is to be an entertaining, reverent host for the universe as it experiences itself through your specific high-fidelity instrument.
To help maintain that perspective, the text mentions a practical, daily tool called the four-step morning ritual, which they referred to as a method for spiritual compounding.
While the source document doesn't detail the exact 4 steps, the purpose is explicitly clear. It is about daily, incremental preparation to ensure your instrument is tuned before you step out into the mesoscale.
And the text makes a point of emphasizing that this kind of compounding consistency doesn't happen in isolation. It brings us to the digital Sangha.
The syllabus highlights the core crew of voices that turned what could have been just a standard video series into a living classroom, a digital cathedral of learning. It's a great reminder that philosophy needs community to thrive.
The inclusion of these figures is vital because they each represent a different practical application of the philosophy. You have Eclectic Scout, who is described as the bridge builder, the boots-on-the-ground philosopher who anchors the broad concepts.
Then there is Sophia, referred to as the barista sage.
The barista sage.
I love that title so much. The idea of a barista sage perfectly encapsulates the mesoscale. Her role in the teachings is to remind us to find the holy in the mundane.
To see pulling a shot of espresso or serving a cup of coffee not as a menial task, but as a mindful, sacred act of provision.
We already mentioned Sid, the steward of the soil, representing our connection to the earth.
You also have Tara Singh and Guru P, who are positioned as the anchors of ancient wisdom and stillness within the community.
They represent the internal state of peace in the collective constitution.
Providing the rhythm to all of this is Portillo Man, the rhythm keeper. His role is to ensure the heartbeat of the teachings remains steady, which is essential for that spiritual compounding.
Finally, there is Luna, the artist whose designated job is to capture the lead and the light, the heavy and the beautiful, and translate it for the next generation.
It is presented as a complete ecosystem of perspectives.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a massive amount of ground today. We've gone from the microscopic buzz of atoms to the galactic void, exploring how opposable thumbs shaped our capacity for connection.
We've drafted a constitution of the self to govern our internal republic.
Looked at how soil regeneration mimics unconditional provision, and explored the mystical mandate of entertaining the one. The synopsis wraps up with a very powerful, centering quote from Dr. Philip Green himself. He says, "The world doesn't need more intelligent people. It needs more reverent people."
That distinction between intelligence and reverence perfectly synthesizes the ultimate lesson of this deep dive. As the text implies, human intelligence alone gave us the linear take-make-dispose model. It gave us the capacity to extract and dominate.
Reverence, however, gives us permaculture. It gives us the capacity to connect and restore.
The ultimate takeaway from this year of teachings is that the magic zone, this optimal state of human existence, isn't a physical destination.
It isn't a secret location hidden in the Cathedral of Giants at UCSC.
It is a state of being. And it is a state of being that you can only inhabit through the daily, compounding practices of gratitude and service.
It is about waking up and actively tuning your high-fidelity instrument every single day so that you can catch that specific frequency of reverence. It doesn't happen by accident.
Precisely. And as we bring this analysis to a close, I want to leave you, the listener, with a lingering thought to explore on your own today. It builds directly on that concept of entertaining the one.
The idea of providing a joyful experience.
Yes. If Dr. Green is right, and your primary foundational job is simply to provide a joyful, engaging experience for the consciousness that is looking through your eyes right now, what kind of movie are you choosing to broadcast for that internal viewer?
Are you broadcasting a stressful drama of anxiety and isolation?
Or are you broadcasting an adventure of connection and reverence? And more importantly, how might consciously changing that channel alter the very next action you take today?
Please click like, and then subscribe. Also share this video with your friends. Thank you.